Welcome to Cars on Call. I am automotive journalist and gastroenterologist Steve Schutz. I usually don't add the gastroenterologist part because it's not really relevant, but today it is because my partner, the great automotive sage, Jeff Bank, who's
Well,
also a
thanks.
gastroenterologist, is here. Jeff, how are you, man?
Hey, doing well, Steve. How about you?
Good. Glad to have you back. It's been too long. And just have to say, Adams Hudson and Stefan Moran. The usual co-hosts are away. Stefan, I think, is going to New Zealand, and Adams is just busy with family stuff and is unavailable. But he's going to Kissimmee, the Mecum Kissimmee
Oh,
auction,
nice. Good for
where they're,
him.
by the way, they're going to sell Jerry Seinfeld's number 20 Gulf 917 that was used in filming the movie Le Mans.
That will be one heck of an auction.
The car was bought originally by Steve McQueen, original owner Steve McQueen, and driven by a number of drivers, including, of course, Steve McQueen at Le Mans in 1971. So that car. Um, all right, Jeff, before we
Yeah.
start, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Nissan. We talked about Nissan last show. We're going to talk about the Lucid Gravity BEV. Spoiler alert, we are going to say good things about a BEV on this show. Right, Jeff?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
And then five cars we're looking forward to in 2025. We'll talk about that and probably the Corvette ZR1, assuming we have some time. But before we start, Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think the Steve McQueen Porsche 917 will sell for? It's an amazing car. It is Gulf livery, so it's that Gulf orange and Gulf light blue. A lot of people think it's the best looking livery ever on a race car. I know Stefan thinks that. Um, but the question is, listen, you don't have a more significant race car than this. It's iconic with beautiful livery, driven by Steve McQueen, raced at Le Mans. So, what do you think? Give me a number.
Let's go 25 million. I think I'd seen your response with your guess, and I think I'm going to undercut you, but it's just such a beautiful, as you said, iconic racing legend, and there's not going to be another one like it that you can buy for umpteen number of years.
Yeah, it's the capstone of any Porsche collection. So, I think and it was owned by Jerry Seinfeld most recently, he owned it for about 25 years, and he said he wants to give someone else a chance. I said 32 million. This is one of those ones. It's really a head scratcher. Um, and what it's going to come down to is two guys, and of course there'll be guys that want it. If only one person wants it, it could go for 10. But
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that's unlikely. I think someone's gonna. There's a bunch enough Porsche guys out there with money that this will go for a big number.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, let's start. Last show we talked about Nissan, and Nissan at that time, a couple of high-level executives leaked to the press that they thought it had 12 to 24 months to survive. And shortly after that, Nissan entered into a partnership, they call it, a merger with Honda. I think it's a takeover myself. And this is a lifeline, and presumably this is the end of the story. Nissan will be a happy cohabitant with Honda. I think this is mostly the end for Nissan. Just to set the table, there's not a lot of synergies here, and Nissan has a full range of SUVs and crossovers and cars. They have some sports cars, a
The
couple.
Z. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Honda, there's a lot of overlap there. Jeff, I can only think of a couple areas where Nissan brings some strength to Honda that they don't have. The Middle East, South America, and Africa, and that's mostly because Nissan's strong in those areas. That's mostly because of their patrol SUV, which is sold here as the Armada.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Otherwise, they don't really bring much. And Jeff, what what do you think about that? I mean, can you imagine Nissan thriving under Honda, or you think they're just going to kill them off?
I don't see Nissan thriving under Honda. I think, I looked into this, and Nissan maybe has a little more expertise in battery electric vehicles than Honda. And I mean, and Honda had partnered with GM on the Prologue, but none of us can say that the Nissan Aria is has been a screaming success as far as Nissan BEVs go. You know, Nissan and a Honda partnership. I mean, they're going to reduce their research and development costs, and maybe position themselves better to compete with Toyota and Volkswagen. But we look at what has happened with takeovers in the past. With Ford taking over, that was with Jaguar, Land Rover, Mazda, Volvo back in the early or in the 2008. Or early 2000s, but they sold them in 2008. So looking at the prior track records of other takeovers in the past or mergers, I mean, look at
Yeah.
Stellantis here currently. Their slump in sales, profitability, quality, all of that, as well as Ford had owned all or part of Jaguar, Land Rover, Mazda, Volvo, and then sold all of those companies back in the 2008 financial crisis. So we just have history that looking at this is just isn't on Nissan and Honda's side. And no, I agree that they're duplicating a lot of their product line, and there's really nothing that's say unique between the two of them that one isn't offering. But I don't think it's going to be enough to go up against Toyota and Volkswagen to really compete on a large scale. And really, I mean, Honda has such a stellar reputation that kind of soiling it with Nissan's slump here currently isn't going to bode well for either of them.
Yeah, I think they're just it's a takeover where they plan to just kill. They're taking a competitor off the board, is what they're doing.
Sure, sure.
Can you imagine they're going to continue to sell a Nissan Rogue? No. I mean,
No,
short term, yeah. But I think that, there's something like, why would you sell as a combined company? Why would you sell a Rogue and a CRV when you can just sell a CRV? Why would you
exactly.
sell a Maxima and an Accord when you can just sell an Accord? And a lot of quality problems with Nissan. Their reputation is pretty lousy, especially because of their CVT and engine problems and all kinds of problems, quality problems. And I think, can I see the Nissan Patrol or the Armada? Uh, that's one
Sure.
thing that Honda doesn't
Six
have.
seven.
So they could have a big SUV, and they call it the Honda Titan. Why not? Because the Titan was a,
There you go.
a a Nissan pickup, but they bought the name. So why not, call it a Honda Titan SUV? But I just can't imagine. By the way, I think it'll take a while to kill off all the Nissan parts, the cars. I don't think it's going to take long to kill Infinity.
Oh no, I mean Infinity, the Armada, I mean the QX80 that it's based on is just duplicating that. And I mean there's Infinity's just been barely treading water for years at this point. So I do not see this going well.
Yeah, it's it's predictable, and we talked about this last show about how you do not get your CEO arrested because you have this huge brain drain, and it's not just the CEO you lose levels of executives under him that owe him their job, and they all leave, and then no one who's left really knows what to do,
Sure.
and the company just flounders, and that's why you don't do it. You fire him, you give him a golden parachute. It doesn't matter what he did, unless it's murder. And even then, maybe you let that go because
Yeah.
you just kill your company, which is what happened. Before we say goodbye to Nissan, you can tell me if I missed anything, but Datsun has some amazing history, and Nissan
Hmm.
has some pretty good history too.
Hmm.
And there's some cars we're going to miss. Any Z car, especially the 240Z or the 300Z from the 90s,
Sure.
the 510 from the 70s,
Yep. Yep.
and of course the mighty Godzilla GTR, and I don't know, little pickup trucks they had and rally success in the 60s and 70s. I don't know. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, with the B2000 little pickup, my dad had owned a little Nissan Frontier with a four-speed manual with about 100 horsepower that couldn't get out of its own way. But it's a fond memory from childhood for me. But otherwise, I mean, not a whole lot else that we're missing. The Murano Cross Cabriolet can be since can go see itself out, and
Yeah.
Savage Geese will keep having their way with theirs and making fun of it. But yeah, that's one for the history books of how in the world that made it off the design floor. Is I don't know how many beers they were drinking, but it's one for the record books. So.
Well, we've seen what I would call the death of Jaguar, now the death of Nissan. And anyway, our RIP. I don't think they'll be missed, but hey, the Lucid Gravity,
Mhm.
the Lucid Air is a sedan, and I thought, nobody really needs another sedan, especially a big luxury sedan. It's about the same size as the S-Class Mercedes, probably as luxurious, but Lucid was really hemorrhaging money because nobody really wanted that. The Gravity is something different. Jeff, talk about that car. It seems different and interesting and significant.
Yeah, so it was just unveiled at the LA Auto Show, and I started taking a deeper dive into the Gravity. I was driving our Porsche Macan GTS around, and being kicked in the back of my seat by our 5-year-old, and thinking, hey, we need a bigger car the next
Yes.
go around. And so looking at 3-row SUVs, or what's the Macan or the Cayenne replacement. But looking at the Gravity, I mean, it's a ground up battery electric vehicle with a unique design. I think it looks pretty similar to the Mercedes R Class, but actually better and more modernized, and has some clever packaging. Really, so they're looking at the interior room. It has 120 cubic feet, so that's really about as much as a Suburban, but it's actually a foot shorter than a Suburban. So it'll fit in your garage, unlike many Suburbans, while still having enough space for your kids and all their stuff. So the the version that they're releasing here currently is the Grand Touring, which has up to a 450-mile range, up to 828 horsepower, with a usual EV 0 to 60 time of 3.5 seconds, ridiculously fast for anything that is that big. Really, to me, looking at Lucid, is one of the unique things they do is packaging, but also their efficiency. So looking specifically measured in miles per kilowatt hour. I was watching Jason Camissa's Carmudgeon podcast episode, and he was comparing the Lucid Gravity efficiency compared to some of the other current battery electric 3-rows that are out there. And so the Lucid's efficiency is greater than 3.6, and so which is higher than the Model X at 3.4, or the Rivian R1S at 2.85. So you think of, here's what their competitors are, and it can essentially do more with a smaller battery pack, and then allow them to better package the actual car around it. In addition, they say, with an appropriate fast charger, it has the quickest fast charging. They quoted at 14 minutes to add 200 miles of range, which to me, I mean, is quite a bit. And that's compared to the 35 minutes for the Model X and 44 minutes for the Rivian R1S. So it's essentially 3 times faster than a Rivian. And in watching my usual YouTube channel of Savage Geese, they interviewed the engineers for Lucid and the Lucid Air, and I mean, the Lucid Air was benchmarked against, as we all know, my favorite E39 M5. And so really the driving dynamics of the Gravity should be similar. It's not a sedan, but these are the same engineers who worked on the Air. And so I'm thinking that it's a luxury SUV with, say, similar features to a Range Rover, but the driving dynamics would be close to a Porsche. Probably not quite what a Macan EV or a regular Cayenne would be, but it would be close. And then looking at pricing, the Grand Touring is starting at around 95,000. The Touring will start at about 80,000, which I think overall is pretty reasonable. I'm sure Lucid is still losing a whole lot of money on these, and they'll continue to get ongoing investments from the Saudi this index fund that is they're continuing to pull from, but that seems like a bottomless pit at this point of money that they can get. So I think that the investment in the brand will continue to be there. In addition, there's some more practical things I think with Lucid that are becoming better here in 2025. They're getting the North American charging standard plug that's the same as Tesla, so they'll be able to use all the Tesla charging stations. They're finally getting Android Auto, so for Android users like myself, that's a huge deal. Downsides really are, Lucid is only available in major cities, Boise not being one of those. I mean, the closest I think Lucid service station to us would be in Salt Lake or in say Seattle, Portland, or California. So really the support isn't there, and also I think their software is still lagging behind the industry leader with Tesla. But overall, my assessment is, hey, is this actually the modern luxury minivan? I mean, this looks like an R class. It has proportions, similar to looking at the side from Toyota Sienna. I mean this as a compliment as it being a minivan, not as an insult with the reputation that many minivans get. But I'm looking at this as saying, hey, in a couple of years when there's been some of the usual battery electric depreciation with these, hey, picking one up and hopefully the infrastructure would be there at that point. So,
Yeah, I think it's right. I think it's pretty good looking.
mhm.
It looks futuristic. I think it looks cool. And the drive dynamics were always going to be better than a standard SUV or a standard minivan because so much of the weight is on the bottom. The center of gravity is so much lower than it would be, in a BMW X7 or an Audi
Sure.
Q7 or something like that, or a Porsche Cayenne. I like the range. Anything over 400, I think, is really good. I like that they're, um, working on fast charging and they're going to use Tesla chargers. Their CEO, Peter Rawlinson, of course, came over from Tesla, so he has a lot of
Yep.
experience in the field in the BEV area. I think Lucid is the only one that's really taken range seriously.
Mhm.
Tesla has too, but uh, I think Lucid's taken it to another level. I mean, the best range Air sedan, Lucid Air, can go about 600 miles on a charge. Obviously, cold weather, that kind of thing limits it. I can't imagine that they wouldn't have the same range in an even higher level Gravity. I think they want to keep the numbers right as far as pricing goes. But
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's pretty cool, Jeff.
yeah, I think so too. And really, Lucid has a good track record of the EPA estimate of their range actually measuring up, and in the real world usage is there. And I look at their efficiency is just, I mean, it's the best in the business. And so I'm really encouraged by this, and hopefully this will allow Lucid to meet the original sales targets and sales figures that having a sedan really didn't do. It was just, hey, we made a sedan so we could we're better than Tesla at making a Model S, but now you got to actually rubber hits the road here and make an SUV and make something that's profitable and scalable. And then that way they can then leverage this into making a smaller SUV down the road, much like Rivian's doing with the R2 here currently.
Uh, Porsche, as you know, has already, they've already said this whole idea of we're going to be 100% electric is 2030 is out the window. We're going to continue
Sure.
making internal combustion engine for the foreseeable future. And Porsche has, as you know, quietly floated the idea of a hybrid Taycan. Has
Yeah.
Lucid, as far as you know, Jeff, have they leaked anything? Are there any whispers about any of these cars going hybrid?
Not that I'm aware of in the interview with Peter Rawlinson that I had seen. I mean, they were fully committed to doing battery electric because that's what he felt like was the best thing for the planet at this point, and them being able to do the most good, but nothing that I saw that was going to be a hybrid in the future. I think it's a a short-term solution, but I think uh, Tesla as well as Lucid is 100% in on battery electric.
I'm older, and I know my limits are that I look back a lot, and I've got I came of age in the automotive world really in the 70s and 80s, so I'm not capable of seeing the world as your generation does.
Mhm.
It's just something I'm not capable of. But I do know this. we have a group of 13 doctors, and I think three of them have battery electric vehicles.
Hmm.
So that tells you something right there. These are smart people.
Sure. And really the gravity with, as our group has a lot of doctors with young kids. They're going to be looking for a vehicle with three rows and plenty of space that can go around town and then maybe make a trip up to our usual destinations of McCall or Sun Valley, Idaho, to do a 200-mile trip and still have room left over and go charge at, say, your hotel or wherever you're staying in those respective places, and feel comfortable knowing that you're not going to just barely get there with range, because we all know that with having kids in the back, you can't cut it close, or they got to make sure they have their devices going, and you don't want to chance anything with being stranded on the side of the road. And I think that the Lucid would provide that peace of mind, as well as the space to be able to get everybody there in comfort and safety.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how they do. I think that Rivian did okay with their truck. I think they did really
Mhm.
well with the SUV. I see a lot of the Rivian SUVs running around. So younger, accomplished people are obviously interested in electric.
Sure.
It's interesting. I don't see as many Audis or Porsches as I expected, but I see an awful lot of Rivians. So I think Lucid is kind of in the same ballpark. This is something brand new. Every generation has their own, idea of what automotive luxury is. And in the
Mhm.
70s, it was a 60s and 70s, it was a floaty Cadillac, big, ostentatious, and just kind of really just uh, big, floaty, and a little bit in your face. And then
Sure.
the 80s came along, it was much more understated, and it was German. BMW, Mercedes, Porsche to a lesser extent. You had the emergence of Audi and Audi Quattro, and the floaty American cars were over. In the 90s, it became Lexus, to a lesser extent Infiniti and Acura. It was the Japanese quality. Germans too, also, but it was
Mhm.
mostly the Japanese in the 2000s. It was really Audi that emerged, and Porsche with their Cayenne and the SUVs. It always changes every 10 to 20 years. Well, you can't expect that the Germans and the Japanese, Lexus, Mercedes, Audi, Porsche, they're going to go forever. And
Sure.
why not
Yeah.
have something like Lucid, right? I mean, doesn't that make sense? It's going to be something different.
I think so. And really, I look at Lucid as like, this is the actual use case, or the, not that many people are going off road with the Rivians. And if you're being honest, you just need something that's going to get you around town in comfort, luxury, and safety. And that's really where Lucid, with their clever packaging, wins out. As opposed to, we like, everybody likes the image of a Rivian or a Forerunner. But to me, Lucid is what the actual practical application of all this is, or going back to, hey, it's the minivan, the new modern luxury minivan, but looks way better.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
seems to me that what we're going to see is kind of Lucid at the top end of the market, Rivian a step below, and
sure.
then one or maybe two steps below that is going to be Tesla, and Tesla will be cheaper and kind of the everyman's BEV, whereas the ultra luxury is going to be probably a Lucid, and I do think the Germans will be left behind, and it's a new generation.
Hmm. Hmm.
Speaking of new generation, we decided that we're going to talk about 2025 cars that we're looking forward to. And I'll start with my list, and I bet you we duplicate. We did not share our list, and I did that on purpose, or we did that on purpose. So I'm going to go through my list, and then we'll go through your list. If there's
Cool.
overlap, just let me know. But this is, I think, there's a lot to look forward to every year. And Jeff, I know we both do this here. Like, hey, what's coming that's cool? What's coming that we're excited about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some cool stuff. I'm going to start with one I guarantee is on your list, and that is the BMW M5 wagon. And it has been slammed. The internet has decided that they're going to beat BMW up because this is a heavy SUV. Or I'm sorry, it's a heavy wagon. That was a Freudian slip. It weighs like an SUV, right? It's like
It's
this is a
5,500
big
pounds.
car.
Yeah.
This is a
Yep.
big
Yep.
car.
But to me, I mean, again, you finally have a wagon here in the US and something else to compete with the Audi RS6 Avant that we
Yes.
all know and love. And I think that, I mean, it still goes like hell. It's, I mean, there's got room in the back for your dog. It's all-wheel drive. It's a plug-in hybrid. You get more of the efficiency while still maintaining your 0 to 60 time under 3.5 seconds. They have great colors like that Isle of Man green that I love. But and if enough people buy them, maybe they'll bring an M3 touring to the States eventually. But I'm excited for it.
Mercedes has their E63S station wagon that's a monster. AMG E63S. Audi has their RS6, as you just said. And those are so cool. And they've had them for years. And discerning people who are cool and are kind of influencers, they have them. And why shouldn't BMW? I mean, BMW really
Right.
started this whole thing with the M5 back in the 80s. Why should they cede that territory?
Yeah. Yeah. And they had the E34 M5 Touring, which, I just went for sale on Cars and Bids and finished at 35,000. And you look at, hopefully having the M5 Touring here in the US will allow more and more people to have the enthusiasm for those old wagons as well. But it'll be a nice alternative to kind of your Macans, Cayennes, and maybe drum up some interest in the bad word of wagons in the United States.
My wife drives a 3 Series diesel station wagon and absolutely loves it. I love it. When I drive it, I always enjoy it.
Mhm.
So I put that number one on my list. Number two on my list, in Europe, you can buy right now a M3 wagon.
Sure.
And
Yep.
I just read online that there's a rumor that the M3 wagon is coming. It looks like it's going to be 2026. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. I
Yeah.
wrote it down. I am so excited. M5, yeah, I've back in the 80s and 90s, the M5 was around the same size as the 3 Series today. So it was really a car for me. And
Mhm.
then it just got too damn big. And I've driven the last two generation M5s, and I thought they were wonderful, but they're not for
Mhm.
me. Just too big.
Yeah.
The M3 wagon, it's supposedly it's coming, Jeff.
All right. All right. I'm gonna cross my fingers and really hope that that it's on the way. I think that I agree. The M5 is too big for us, or if I'm gonna go that big, I'll just go Lucid Gravity, going back to our prior conversation. So yeah.
Yep, M3, that's where it's at. So
Yeah.
BMW, if you're here, if you're listening, bring that over because I put that down as one of my five.
Yeah.
Number three is the 2026 Chevy Corvette Zora.
That's on my
And for
list. Yep.
that car, yeah, they take the ZR1 V8 and they add the E-Ray E electric supplementation, and it's complete. Jeff, this is
Bonkers.
stupidly crazy.
Yep. 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 So they're estimating what over 1,200 horsepower between the two of them, because I think the E-Ray engine is 150 to 180 horsepower, and then the twin turbo V8 in the ZR1, and then all-wheel drive in a Corvette. But you need that kind of traction to be able to put the power to the ground in this. And when I read 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds in this, and then price, I would guess 225, 250. We'll see where the ZR1 lands at probably what around 200, but this would be way above that. But this would be the really the holy grail for the C8.
There was always something that made people say no. The Porsche or the Porsche 911 is not really a competitor for the Corvette. And in
Mhm.
the 80s, the Corvette would beat it in racing, showroom stock racing. The Corvette would routinely beat it, but Porsche people didn't care because the quality of the Corvette was so lousy they'd fall
Sure.
apart. The interior sucked. The materials in the interior were lousy. But especially over the last 20 years and especially over the last 10, GM has they've been
On fire.
serious.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, it's like it reminds me of the show Succession, where the patriarch just looks at his kids finally and says, "You're just not serious. None of you is serious." And he's got a point. It's like they're
Mhm.
just running around playing games and they're not serious. None of them could take over this huge enterprise. That's the way I looked at Corvette. You guys, you're
Mhm.
not serious. You're not serious about this. Jeff, they're serious.
They're very serious. Yeah. Gone is the fantastic plastic interiors, and there's
Right.
full leather and customization as far as your seats go, and just high quality materials there with the latest technology, unique designs, and really more bespoke colors. And my dad's friend just ordered a what hysteria purple Z06, which I think is just an awesome color name, and it's an
Love that.
awesome, yeah, yeah. So I think really Corvette has significantly stepped up their game with the C8 and the engineering achievements behind the, I mean, Z06, ZR1, and the Zora are just off the charts.
Yeah, it's almost like a meme. Porsche has their Turbo S, and it's going to have around 700 horsepower, and Corvette's like, "Oh, that's cute. Here's
Yeah.
1200."
Mhm.
I
Right,
mean,
right. Mic
it's
drop. Yep.
they're not fucking around. I
Right.
mean, these guys are serious, and nobody who's a Porsche guy, and I certainly am one, nobody could look at Corvette and say that's not a serious competitor. It
Right.
is.
Right. And they're, I mean, they're throwing the gauntlet down on even, Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren as far as their horsepower numbers as well. So they're, I mean, leapfrogging past Porsche to get all the, I mean, go all the way up there. And this mid-engine layout with the C8 is allowed them to do these astronomical figures. They're just throwing down the gauntlet like they haven't ever done before.
Well, I'm proud, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see what your dad says when he hears this. But I'm going to make a
Sure.
prediction. I believe that Corvette is going to come out not this year, but probably in 2026. They're going to come out with a Corvette Touring, which is going to be less horsepower, not a ZR-on, not even Z06, but they're going to have a manual transmission. That's my prediction, and I think that's a good. I think that's a safe prediction.
I think so too. And I mean, because my dad is definitely one of those who's a holdout on the C8 because of the lack of a manual transmission. And I think there's a huge number of C7 buyers who, they took a manual for many reasons, and there's some who are now converted to C8 and they enjoy the paddle shifting. But I think there's a significant holdout among them who are significantly missing the manual, and then Corvette's looking over at Porsche and what they're doing, and the enthusiasm surrounding uh, the ongoing take rate on their manuals, and saying, "Hey, we need some of that over here."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
guess what? It's easy. You already have
Mhm.
the Camaro, the ZL1, and some of those special Camaros. They already have a six-speed transmission from
Sure.
Tremec. You just take
Sure.
the Tremec transmission, stick it in there. It can't be that hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess that's maybe two. I'm going to go quickly through the next two. I put down the 2025 Scout SUV.
Hmm.
Um, it's basically going to be Volkswagen components. This is a Scout, of course, used to be from International, which is an American company now called Navistar. And they had the Scout, which is a small SUV, and it was two doors, and a Travelall, which was the big suburban equivalent. And now it was purchased by Volkswagen, and it's an EV. I think it looks cool, and that's it. I
Hmm.
think it's going to have pretty decent range, so I like the Scout. And then the last, I'm going to put one down that I know you have down, but I'm not. I don't care if we are the same. The coolest electric car I have seen is the Volkswagen ID Buzz that looks like
Sure.
an old 60s Volkswagen bus. I love it, and I'm really. I've seen a couple in the wild. I know you have
I
too,
have
Jeff.
two. Yep. Yep.
Right? Like,
Hmm.
come on, how can you not love this?
Exactly. It's feel good vibes going down the road that harkening back to the Volkswagen of the 60s and the flower power. And, I saw one go down the road in kind of an aqua blue, and it made my head turn. And even my wife in the passenger seat was like, wait, was that really the bus? And my sister-in-law's friend has an original bus that our girls just love seeing. And so I think that this will hopefully allow Volkswagen to turn things around and get that feel good culture back at VW. But and the Scout, I think it hopefully will succeed. Americans love the tough outdoorsy SUV, and so how can it not, or kind of be a somewhat of a cheaper, I think, cooler Rivian.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah.
All right, let's go
Um,
with your list. I know we overlapped a little bit, but let's go
sure.
through yours.
Well, I think the one that is going to be coming out here within really a couple of weeks here in 2025 is I'm wearing my Mazda shirt here, and there's a Mazda Spirit Racing MX-5 that's due to be unveiled on January 10th at the Tokyo Auto Salon. And so I think that's towards the top of my list, especially with the 35th anniversary Miata being underwhelming in my book. And so this, I'm hoping, will be able to come to the US. It may be only in Japan, but it's been teased, and there's supposed to be some performance modifications with a front air splitter, a larger rear spoiler, and kind of lightweight wheels. So it's more of a track weapon. And to me, it's just dialing up the club Miata that I have with the kind of BBS Recaro Brembo package, and just taking it up to 11. So no significant performance or excuse me, no engine modifications,
Right,
no horsepower
right.
increase. But really, to me, that's not what the Miata needs. It's just kind of buttoning it down to make it more of a fun during your autocross, and for me, my daily commute. But
They're leaning into it, Jeff.
Mhm,
They went,
mhm.
as you know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, it was zoom, zoom. And Mazda deleted zoom, zoom from all of their ads and their commercials probably 8 years ago or so. And
Yeah,
they really leaned into, they went from being, we want to be zoom, zoom, Miata, racing. They bought the naming rights for Laguna Seca Raceway in California.
yeah,
And then they kind of pivoted and decided, okay, we're going to be basically the Japanese Audi, nice interiors, tasteful colors, tasteful exterior styling, elegance, but understated, and they've done really well with that. So I
yeah. Look,
love because they could have just said, screw it, we're selling so many of these CX90s and CX50s, we don't really need to be on it, but they didn't do that.
yeah, they continue to generate the enthusiasm for the brand with the Miata, keep those genuine enthusiasts like myself engaged. And now, I mean, Mazda Speed is no longer, and so Mazda Spirit Racing is the new Mazda Speed. And so I'm really crossing my fingers that this will be coming to the States, and could be my next Miata in down the road. But we'll see. So,
Well, the one you have is pretty cool.
it is, it's awesome. Well, I'm just kind of down the road.
All
So.
right, what else you got?
Let's see. I got in the BMW world the M2 CS.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so the prior M2 CS was a big success. I mean, owned by Chris Harris and well loved. And so this one, the styling of the current generation has grown on me. And so if you could kind of trim up or some of those that big chin spoiler, and make it look a little more aggressive, and button it down a little bit more. So it's kind of a similar vein to the Mazda Spirit Racing Miata. That the new M2 is supposed to have. I think about 520 horsepower. So should
Right.
be plenty fast. As if the current one is not. So
I drove a manual, the latest M2, and it was really, really nice. But it was really just the same to drive as my F80, which is last
Mhm.
generation
Yeah,
M3. When I had a manual of that, it felt exactly the same, just a little bit smaller.
yeah.
So this CS is another level. They're taking it and just more power, more performance, suspension mods. It looks
Stripped
so
down
cool, Jeff.
interior. Yep.
No,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
no manual, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, which is a major bummer, but
But it makes
yeah,
sense. It's like a track weapon. You don't need a manual for that.
sure, sure, yeah. Well, my next one is the Porsche electric hypercar, which was based on Mission X. It's supposed to be out in 2025, maybe 2026. I'm supposed to have what 1600 to 1700 horsepower, and has those really cool Le Mans style doors that look distinctive, and I think are unlike what was on the 918. So I think the styling will be there, but we'll kind of see what Porsche does with this kind of battery electric, truly sports car. And I had read that their goal was for it to be the fastest road legal vehicle on the Nürburgring. So we'll see if they meet that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll do it. They'll have to develop. It probably hasn't done. They haven't done it yet because they're probably busy developing some tires that can handle the weight
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
G-forces. I can only imagine what that would be like. And as we both know, the Plaid Tesla Model S was supposed to take that crown, but it could
Mhm.
not make it all the way around the ring, which is so embarrassing because the fastest cars are doing it in 6 minutes and 40 seconds or something. Fastest
Yeah.
production cars. You can't go 6 minutes. You can't go 7 minutes, bro.
Come on, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mustang GTD just did it in 6 minutes, I think 57 seconds to
yeah.
make sure Stefan gets his plug in this episode. So
It's yeah, and of course that's the opposite of a BEV. All right, what
yeah,
else?
yeah. Last one I had was a little bit of a plot twist. The Aston Martin Vanquish.
Whoa.
So yeah, and so really, it hasn't that nameplate hasn't been used since 2019. I fell in love with the Vanquish in the early 2000s, and when it was used in Die Another Day and driven by Pierce Brosnan, but it's going to have a 824 horsepower twin turbo V12. And so I'm just happy that Aston is still making something like this. Looks typical, beautiful Aston with great proportions. But I was looking at the starting price, and it's $435,000, which
Yeah.
look at comparing it to the Continental GT starting at 250,000. Is this really, in my mind, is this worth an extra 200,000 to spend it on an Aston and the badge? I don't know. I mean, would you buy this? Would you buy a Ferrari, the 12 cylindri, or however you say that better with an Italian accent? But yeah, that's it is something that I'm just happy still exists. But
Yeah, I think Aston Martin is hoping that the many, many, many rich people who will not be permitted to buy a Ferrari 12 cylindry
mm,
will come over to them and buy one of these. 20 years ago they said we're going to compete with Porsche. That's out. That went out the window about 10 years ago.
mhm,
They
mhm.
they gave up, and now they're trying to compete with Ferrari, and it's just really difficult. It's I think it's just difficult when you've got essentially for your top cars, really all your cars now. You have Mercedes engines, and you can get away with it if you're Range Rover, BMW engine.
Yeah,
Is Ineos has a BMW engine. There's a lot of people that use Mercedes or BMW engines, a lot of manufacturers. But when you're $400,000, you got
better
to
have a
have your own
bespoke
engine.
engine. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Especially if you're trying
especially
to compete with something like Ferrari and sounds like a Ferrari. But
yeah,
yeah.
especially if you have a Formula One team. Having
Mhm.
said that, Aston Martins are beautiful. I'm rooting for them. I hope they survive.
Me too. Me too.
The world,
Yeah.
the world. I think Adam said this. The world is a better place if Aston Martin is in it.
I agree. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
more beautiful place for sure. But
more
yeah.
beautiful. Absolutely. Well, I know we have to wrap up soon, but I'm going to give you a quick list of because on my own, wrote down a few vehicles that I'm not looking forward to in 2025.
Mm,
And I just want to get your take on these because
sure.
I'm sure you're going to agree. But these, I saw one of these today, and sort of. My first one is 2025 Dodge Charger EV slash Alpha Julia EV. They're going to be in the same platform. Yeah, they're going to have internal combustion engines available, V6 only. And the Dodge Charger had so much personality, and they made the completely, it went from tough guy in high school to, I don't want to say switching his gender in college, but the tough guy in college just went to metrosexual.
Yeah.
It looks like a Ford Maverick, like a new Ford Maverick. It has two-door version, four-door version. The
Yeah.
Ford Maverick coupe and sedan from the 70s was so generic and just this is not a fucking Charger.
Yeah. And now it can't even do a burnout with the it being an EV, right? There is no line lock. I mean, come on, like the Dodge is you're supposed to be a hooligan in a Charger, and I mean, give me a break. So,
This is,
yeah,
this reminds me of the last year, a car that I was not looking forward to, that I said I wasn't looking forward to, was the Alfa Romeo Tonale and the Dodge Hornet twins. And I defy you to find a Dodge Hornet in the wild that isn't a rental car.
yeah,
Everyone I've seen, everyone I've seen is a rental car, and I've seen zero Alfa Romeo Tonales.
yeah. The only ones I've seen are just being reviewed online and made fun of because it's a Dodge Hornet. Yeah,
It's a joke. It's a little
yeah,
SUV crossover.
yeah,
I'm not looking forward to the Charger. I'm not, because it's the same thing. They just took a car with personality and ripped all the personality off. And again, Google 1976 Ford Maverick and tell me it doesn't look like an old version of this new Charger.
okay,
I'm not looking forward to the 2026 Porsche Boxster Cayman AV. They have
yeah.
decided they're not going to switch over. They're going to do it, but they're going to also sell the internal combustion. I'm not looking forward to the BEV versions.
Yeah, and a BEV in such a small car is going to be to preserve that Boxster handling and purity is going to you're going to add what another 1,000 pounds to the Boxster. I mean, yeah, it's no longer going to be the Boxster at that point.
Yeah. All right. I got a couple Toyotas here.
Yeah.
What are they doing? FJ Cruiser hybrid based. It's like this weird.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
It's based on the RAV4. It's this what? The
Is it?
FJ, of course, is the moniker. Those are the first initials of the old original Land Cruisers. It's the
Yeah.
FJ40, FJ60, FJ80, FJ100. FJ means Land Cruiser. It doesn't mean here's
It's
what
a
it
Bronco
is.
Sport, right?
Thank you. I literally took the words out of my mouth. It's a Bronco Sport. It's a RAV4 with an OtterBox, which is what we said about Ford
Ugh.
Escape and the Ford Bronco Sport. Jeff, come on.
Ugh. Yeah. Yeah.
I said it's fugly and it damages the FJ brand.
It does. And the original FJ was so cool. And now I don't get the everyone piggybacking on this all this off-road stuff. And I'm like, if I could actually see a Jeep go off-road, I mean, but now everybody wants that image, and I'm just like, oh, like God, why do we have to do this? Why can't we just buy, a Toyota Camry, which is really all that you need, but you got to go be a tough guy and or try and look the part. But no,
Yeah, you're totally, of course, you're right. Uh, which brings me to no one is a bigger Forerunner fan than I am, but I'm not looking forward to the new Forerunner. Four-cylinder or four-cylinder hybrid. Oh, come on. I've seen it, of course. I have not seen it in the wild yet, but like the Tacoma. They took away what made it great, which was this normally aspirated V6 that will run forever.
ever. Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
God knows what's going to happen with these hybrids and the four-cylinder. It's not the same.
No, no, not at all. Yeah, my dad had got the last generation Tacoma, and he's been very happy so far. He got a nice army green V6, and he'll have it, 20 years.
The Forerunner and the Tacoma sold really strongly until the new versions came along, and now the new versions are struggling, and
Yeah,
I can see why.
yeah,
My last one is the Volkswagen ID.7 sedan. It looks like a
yeah.
BEV Passat. Like what? No one's gonna buy it.
Ugh,
No one's gonna.
ugh.
No one's gonna want this.
I mean, Volkswagen, anything besides the ID Buzz, yeah. I mean, why even bother?
Yeah, yeah. The ID Buzz is awesome, and the ID.7 is like, oh, give me a break.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. That kind of wraps us up. And unless you have something else you were thinking of that you thought of as we were going through this, because I know I sprung this on you, the cars I'm not looking forward to. But
No, I think that's a great list. I had just seen what the FJ Cruiser looked like, and I just did a double take and said, "What? No, why? No, why do you have to do that?" So, yeah, I don't
yeah,
think I have anything else that I can think of off the top of my head.
yeah, the FJ Cruiser from 10 years ago ish was just a Forerunner, and it was a concept car. So they did it for a car show, and they just put a different body on it. It looked like an old FJ40 kind of, but it was on a
Hmm.
Forerunner platform, and they had such good feedback. They said, "All right, let's just do this," and then they sold really, really well. As fast as they could make them, they sold, and they sold for about 3 or 4 years, and then it went away.
Yeah,
It's still you still see them around. It's really great, and but this FJ Cruiser is like, ugh,
just an also
so.
ran. Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I am going to. I guess we're just going to wrap it up here, Jeff, because
Cool.
unless you have other thoughts, but I think that's everything we have. And anyway, Stefan and Adams, we miss you, and I am really glad, Jeff. I really all these things we talked about. I wanted to get your input on,
Thank
so I'm
you.
glad
Yeah,
we got a chance
this was fun. Yeah.
to do it. Yeah, your insights are always fantastic. So thank you. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, happy to be back on, and looking forward to what happens in 2025 in the automotive world and for Cars on Call, and looking forward to hearing when Stefan and Adams come back, whenever that is.
Whenever it is. Like, listen, subscribe. See you later.